Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're probably going to be a better person after watching this video. Passing the buck like a pro. Several years ago, I worked in the housewares department of a small family-run department store chain. I had a really cool manager, but the results of the so-called decision-making prowess of the higher-ups on the profitability, or lack thereof, of his department easily lumped him into the long-suffering middle management category. The buying office of this chain frequently bought large quantities of merchandise from Asian suppliers, usually sight unseen, meaning just based on text descriptions, so some chronic half-assery was endemic to how the stores were usually stocked. About a month after the end of the Christmas season one year, my department received a massive restock of then trendy plastic insulated cups with straws. There was an upcoming sale on these cups, so I reorganised a section of shelving especially to make space for all of them. However, when I opened the first case of the new shipment, I was met with smiling reindeer and snowmen, a Christmas assortment. Every single case was a Christmas assortment. I let my manager know and he mentioned it to the buying office more than once, but we were stuck with them. I had no choice but to put it all out on the shelves for the upcoming sale, and of course, my store's numbers for the sale were bad. A few months later, there was a very important springtime sale when a handful of stores have sales exclusive to them. Celebrities with their branded cookware sign their GGAs, there are demonstrations of new gadgets, etc. One of those chosen stores asked my store to transfer to them a large amount of plastic insulated cups with straws. MaliciousCompliance was brewing, but I had to check something first. Yes, the SKUs for every single shipment to date of our plastic insulated cups with straws were the same. Because they were all the same, the requested SKU on the transfer request could be filled by whatever I happened to have on hand, as long as it had the same SKU. Giggling maniacally, I hurriedly boxed up and filled out the transfer paperwork to transfer all of my Christmas cups to that lucky store. And when I told my manager about how I got rid of the cups, we both had a good chuckle in the stockroom. Sure, I'll just casually show up to work with food poisoning and shut the place down. A few years ago, I used to work as a swim instructor while I was in college. It was an exhausting job being in the water all day, but I liked it for the most part because I got to interact and teach kids. Seeing someone completely scared of even getting their hair wet to being able to swim across the pool was very rewarding. As much as I liked the job, I absolutely despised management. They demanded too much and refused to compensate their employees for any of these demands. For example, I gave them my availability of when I can work because I was also a full-time student and had another job. They took this as a light suggestion and scheduled me to become subs for other instructors as they pleased, even going as far as to schedule me during my class hours. I would remind them firmly that my availability was the only time I can work. They can utilize it as they pleased, but I wouldn't be able to give them more than that. I already worked 30 hours a week. They sometimes give me the same crap of, if you can't be flexible with work, then we're going to have to go with someone who is. I put up with it because I had to pay for rent and some of my tuition that financial aid did not cover. However, the last straw was when I had to call in sick to work for a time I shouldn't have been scheduled to come in anyway, because I was throwing up. I had severe food poisoning and was throwing up and had to constantly take runny craps. Sorry, I know that's too much information. Every few hours or so. I was definitely not in a state to be going out. I emailed my professors and called into my other job for the next day and they didn't give me a hard time and just wanted me to recover and feel better. Then I called my manager for the swim school I worked at. Me. I see that you have me scheduled for today. I'm sorry, but I can't come in. I've been throwing up all day. I think I have food poisoning. I'm gonna see a doctor today and I can bring a note if you want. They demanded it anytime anyone called in sick. Manager, you can't do that. No one else can come in to cover you. Mind you, I was already covering for someone else without being asked. Me. I normally can't work on Thursdays anyway. I really can't be there today. I don't want to throw up in the middle of a lesson. Manager. Just don't eat anything and throw it all up before you get here. You have to show up. There's nobody else. If you don't, it would be another citation for you on top of the one you got last week. Me. But I've already scheduled to see a doctor today. Manager. Doesn't sound like my problem. Side note. I got a citation because I was 2 minutes late to work because there was an emergency vehicle covering the only entrance to work. You can clearly see it from the building. At least half of the employees were late that morning and every single one got written up. I really should have just not shown up, but I was stupid and haven't found another job to replace that one. I managed to show up to work on time. I was clearly sick. My other co-workers could tell as soon as I walked in and asked me rather incredulously as to why I showed up to work. I just laughed it off and told them I had bills to pay. It was around 3 p.m. I was waiting in the water for my class to show up when I could feel my mouth salivate and could feel the vomit coming up my throat. I jumped out of the water and ran into the nearest restroom to throw up. While I was emptying the contents of my stomach, my manager was banging on the door, yelling at me because I was late to my class. I told him I don't think I can make it in between vomits. He told me he wouldn't give me any more hours, which was his way of firing anyone if I didn't show up to my class. I hurriedly rinsed off my mouth and went back to the pool. I went to my lane and saw that it was empty. I asked my co-worker next to me if any of the kids had shown up yet. He told me that one of them called out and that the other two weren't there yet. I was absolutely pissed. My manager was harassing me while I was throwing up when none of the kids were even there yet. It was then that I felt more throw up, possibly leftovers from when I was rudely interrupted, climb up my throat. I didn't even bother getting up. At that point I just said screw it and threw up in the pool. It was honestly disgusting, and yes, I was sitting in my own throw up, but I felt like crap and I didn't give a crap. I did what I was told and showed up to my non-existent class on time. The pool was immediately cleared and shut down. Thankfully, the lane next to me was doing laps and was nowhere close to where the throw up was. My manager was livid. He began to yell at me in front of my co-workers, the kids and their parents for throwing up in the pool. Manager: why would you do that? You couldn't have at least gotten up? Me: I have no control over it. I told you I was sick. Manager: help them clean this up and come see me in the office after. He then stormed out to go to the office to wait for me. My co-workers could see that I was feeling worse and told me not to worry about cleaning it up as they've got it covered. One of them told me to sit down and gave me some water to drink as I was getting really dizzy. I guess it was that moment that I felt completely disgusted with how they were treating me and decided that I've had enough. I got up and walked to the office to confront my manager. When I walked in, he was glaring at me with his arms crossed. Manager: I'm gonna have to write you up for this one. Me: forget it, I quit. Manager: you can't do that, you have to at least give us 2-week notice. Who's gonna cover your classes? Me: doesn't sound like my problem. I excused myself and clocked out for the last time. I will always remember that stupid look on his face when I told him I wasn't dealing with his crap anymore. My co-workers texted me later on telling me that they had to shut down the pool for the whole day and cancel classes to clean up. I felt really bad because the receptionist has to send emails and reschedule classes, but they told me not to worry about it because everyone else got the rest of the day off, and it wasn't my fault I was forced to show up to work. My manager got an earful from upper management about having to shut down the place. They also heard him talking to the district manager about me. He said that I was throwing up because I was hungover from partying the night before. The district manager did call me the next day to ask my side of the story, which I appreciated. I told him everything and he was very understanding about it. I told him I had a doctor's note clearly stating that I was in no condition to be teaching. I also told him about the complete disrespect for my time and all the times my crappy manager asked me to come in when I was clearly not available. He asked me if he could talk to me in person and if I would like to come back. I told him that I appreciate him reaching out to me, but I wouldn't be coming back anymore. I honestly would rather chew on my leg than work for that guy again. Similar incidents happened to other co-workers who were forced to show up to work while they were sick. One of them had an ear infection and was told by his doctor that he's not allowed to be in the pool, and the other had pink eye. My manager wanted her to teach a class to kids with effing pink eye. He had complete disregard for not only his employees but also the kids that we were teaching. It didn't take long before he was fired by upper management. There was a high turnover rate with the employees, and people who've been working there for years either left or were talking about leaving. They've had several complaints from parents because the instructors had to keep changing and just for the overall quality of the services they provided. He really brought the whole place down. By the time they replaced him, I had already found a better paying job with more flexible hours. However, I would never forget the satisfaction I got for being right about being sick and shutting down the pool, indirectly exposing his mistreatment of staff to upper management. Okay, so that's all for r/MaliciousCompliance. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!